All right, we'll call the Education K-12 Subcommittee to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Representatives Bolso,
Here.
Hurt, McKenzie, Ritchie, Slater, Stevens, Warner, White. Chairman Haston.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have quorum.
Thank you. Any personal orders before we begin? Seeing none. Item number 1, we are going to roll 7 places. And we are going to, we have a bill that is going to be, we're going to bring up item number 9, House Bill 7076 by Representative Freeman. He's got a bill in another committee at the same time. So we will bring up item number 9, House Bill 776 by Representative Freeman.
Thank you, committee and chair.
Fails to pass for lack of a second motion. That brings us to item number 2, House Bill 7063 by Representative Rudd. You are recognized. Do I have a motion? Properly motion, and I believe you do have an amendment, Chairman Rudd?
Yes, I do.
And does it read out the bill? Okay. All right. We have an amendment here. Could you give us that drafting code, please?
One moment. That is, let me get to it. That is 9513.
All right. I believe that's what we have as well. Do I have a motion and a second on the amendment? All right. Properly motioned. Are you recognized to explain your amendment?
Yeah, the amendment, the bill is permissive, but this, the post commission noticed something in the bill that they added a section 8 to and corrected so that it does not affect, well, I'll read it. The amendment does not make the bill, but it is very important to it. It adds sections to the bill that were requested by the Post Commission in Commerce and Insurance. It waives the requirement for SROs to be employed law enforcement in order to receive basic training. This allows them to train retired law enforcement as well as veterans, as well as qualified veterans.
All right, members, you've heard the explanation of the amendment. Representative McKenzie, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate you bringing this bill. I think, you know, with several of our outlying counties, it's been an issue starting this fall. But are there any provisions out there for looking at their service in terms of if they've had, it hadn't been exemplary? Let me put it mildly to say that, you know, during their 30 years in law enforcement, they've had, you know, several write-ups, and it's just, they retired, but they may have been forced to retire. Is there anything like that? And we know that that happens. Is there anything out there that kind of prevents those folks from being amongst our children?
Chairman Rudd?
No, because it wouldn't be any limitations like that is currently on SRO serving. And also, this is a very minor bill that lets the LEAs define policy. But again, any limitations that are currently on law enforcement would be enforced under this, that are required by SROs. That's why even with veterans, it's honorably discharged veterans. But again, it's very permissive, and it lets the whole bill lets the LEAs write their own policies.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this bill.
Any other questions for the sponsor on the amendment? All right. With no other questions, we'll go ahead and vote to adopt Amendment 9513. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are back on your bill as amended. Chairman Rudd, do you have any other statements?
Thank you.
Before we
Yeah, what brought this about is, you know, we're having trouble hiring deputies just for regular law enforcement, and then when we go to expand with the state helping, especially these rural counties, helping hire law enforcement and SROs for their schools, this is opening up for retired police officers, qualified officers, and also opening up for honorably discharged veterans. They still have to go through post-training, and they would have to meet any policies put in place by the LEAs. We've left a lot of that up to the LEAs to define what they want, as long as they meet minimum requirements. And that's what the bill does. It's fairly simple, and it leaves in place just everything that's currently in place. It just allows the schools to hire if they can't find deputies.
All right, thank you for that. I believe I had Representative Ritchie down on the list first. Go ahead, Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. And during your presentation just now, you just addressed the question that I had. I was just curious to make sure that even for honorably discharged veterans that are out there, that there would be some form of training that goes through. So, but you answered that during your explanation. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? One question I had, this would fall outside of the current SRO grant. This would just be local decision. If they decided they wanted to go this route, it would go through the SRO grant. That would go through the local expenditures. Is that correct?
I don't know on that. That
Okay.
hasn't come up. No one's asked that question. I am assuming that it would still apply if the local LAs chose to and couldn't find deputies, but I
Okay.
honestly don't know. No one's asked that question.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 7063 by Chairman Rudd. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it on the full education.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Committee.
All right. Item number 3, House Bill 7102 is off notice. That brings us up to item number 4, House Bill 7023 by Chairman Sapicki. Do I have a motion? All right, properly motioned, and I believe there is an amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, drafting code 9532.
All right. That's what we've got as well. Do I have a motion on the amendment? Properly motioned. Does it rewrite the bill?
It adds to it, sir.
Okay, go ahead with your explanation of the amendment then,
Brief
please.
explanation. It addresses in code, if we do pass 7023, it addresses in code that a law enforcement agent would be able to carry into school.
All right, members, any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, without objection, we'll go ahead and vote to adopt Amendment 9532. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed say no. Ayes have it. We are back on your bill as amended. Chairman Sapicki, you are recognized.
Thank you, members. Brief description. Authorizes a law enforcement agency to assign at least one law enforcement officer to serve as a school resource officer at a school if the local board of education has not entered into a memorandum of understanding with a local law enforcement agency. Requires the chief of the law enforcement agency that assigned the law enforcement officer to notify and to provide certain information to school officials. Expands the definition of an SRO and the list of individuals authorized to possess and carry a firearm on school grounds to include such law enforcement officers as assigned to the school. Mr. Chairman, that's the explanation of the bill.
Thank you for that, Chairman Sapicki. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 7023. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You're on to full education.
Thank you, Chairman Committee.
All right. Item number 5, House Bill 7059 is off notice. That's going to bring us back to the top of the calendar. Item number 1, House Bill 7002 by Leader Lamberth. Do I have a motion? Properly motioned. Leader Lamberth, you are recognized on House Bill 7002.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and I apologize. I was in another committee presenting a bill. There is an amendment on this bill that changes section 1.
All right,
It,
what's the drafting code on that?
should be 009330.
All right, do I have a motion in a second? Properly motioned, and you can go ahead with an explanation of the amendment.
So the amendment adds in here really the meat of the bill so that in Sumner County, when a fire alarm goes off, our teachers and substitute teachers are currently taught that if you hear that alarm, there are steps that you go through to determine, is it a fire? Is it a tornado? Is there an active shooter on campus? And then very quickly, there is usually a secondary alert that goes out. I won't go into all the details just for purposes of security, but Representative Slater and I actually met with our local law enforcement, and they strongly encourage that this be the procedure in every county in our state and every school. This makes it where it fits within their procedures that they're already doing. And again, all of our schools are doing training on all of this. This just says, look, understand that when a fire alarm goes off, make sure that they are also trained to differentiate and determine, okay, what is it exactly that they should do next? That's what both the amendment and then the bill as amended would do, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any questions on the amendment? Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That to me is I fully and definitely understand, but I'm hoping that this is a stopgap kind of a thing. So I worked at Oak Ridge, and we had one type of alarm for fire. Like you say, this is a fire alarm, and we're kind of, lack of a better word, we've had to grow what a fire alarm means over a time period. But you also have, if there's a radiation alarm, you have if there's just a take cover drill for natural disaster. So I'm hoping that we as a body are going to put some measures and some money to where there'll be sound this alarm if it's a active shooter. I hate to, use that term, but we're in this session where as opposed to a fire. Is that something that the crafters are considering?
Leader Lamper?
Yes, definitely. In fact, we have passed Alyssa's law as part of the SRO bill that we passed and that the vast majority of us supported during the regular session. That included some of that language. And then we also put $40 million in the budget that is currently the budget year that we're in specifically for public schools, and they can use them for those type of alarms. Not every district has those, but there are sometimes even some simple things that they can put in these procedures where if they don't have an up-to-date alarm system, it's very easy and simple for if a fire alarm goes off and it's an active shooter, as soon as possible, the loudspeaker can literally say the words lockdown, lockdown, lockdown over and over again, and that be their procedure. We don't get prescriptive as to what the procedure is, but just as you mentioned at your former employer, or I believe you retired from, if I remember correctly, and they develop those procedures. This would just force them to develop those procedures for both teachers, staff, and substitute teachers to make sure that everybody knows, all right, when that fire alarm goes off, don't immediately assume it's a fire. Here's the process you go through to determine what the next steps are, to go through very quickly, but here's the process.
Representative McKenzie?
Yeah, just as a quick follow-up, I would just encourage all of us, and I'll encourage the governor as well in this next budget, just to try to put money all 95 counties. I forgot how many LEAs we have in our system, just to help fund a new system where fire means fire, tornado means tornado, active shooter means active shooter. So, but thank you for bringing this bill.
Any other questions on the amendment? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and vote on adopting Amendment 9330. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are back on your bill as amended. Do you have anything else you would like to add? We do have one person down that wanted to give some testimony today. So if without objection, we will go out of session and we will ask Mary Joyce to come up. All right, and with that, we will go back into session. Leader Lambert, do you have anything to add to your bill?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 7002. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. On to full education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
All right, that brings us to item number 6, House Bill 7038 by Representative Gant. Do I have a motion? Properly motioned. Representative Gant, you are recognized, and I do believe, is it one amendment or two that we have a couple amendments to work through. Do you
Correct.
have a drafting code for that first amendment?
First Amendment is 9517.
All right, do I have a motion and a second on that amendment? Oh, hold on one second. All right, Representative Gant, I'm getting some consultation here that says that we might need to just go with amendment number 2 on this. And that would take care of 1 and 2. Is that correct? Or he can,
Mr. Chairman, if I could. maybe
Representative
this
Gant,
may-
you're recognized.
The part of the amendment that we're most interested in making sure is part of the record or part of the legislation is that the alert systems funded through this grant program must be approved by the Department of Education in consultation with the Department of Safety.
Okay, I've got some clarity now. What we need to do is we need to go ahead and take up Amendment 2, the 9552 drafting
Okay.
code, and then go back and get Amendment 1. That doesn't
Okay.
happen very often.
That's-
So, members, we're going to be on the second amendment on your packet, A2 Amendment to 9552. Do I have a motion and a second on that? Properly motioned. Representative Gant, you are recognized on Amendment 9552.
Okay. What this legislation is attempting to do is to establish a first alert safety grant program that is currently not recognized under the current structure of how grants are administered. And what this would change is it would allow the school districts that do not have a specific plan for a first alert system in their overall safety plan, this would allow them to go to the Department of Education and the Department of Safety and apply for this first alert system to be included under the current grant program that we approved back in the last session. And I think that was 20 million that was approved for safety grants. So that's what this legislation establishes, is it allows this type of system to qualify for that current money that's currently in there under the grant program.
All right, thank you for that explanation. Members, any questions on Amendment 9552? Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's along the same lines that I was speaking with the majority leader about is as we roll these things out, it'd be great if we could have some consistency at the beginning. As you say, these are for this particular one, you're looking at schools that don't have a real first alert type system. But it'd be good if the department, really just saying this, maybe get it on the record, the Department of Education could start trying to standardize how we're alerting our kids, right? Put them into categories. I would hate for us to spend this, we say 20, 90, whatever millions of dollars, and then we got to go back if we want to standardize. So it'd be good for them to kind of get a comprehensive plan for this new world that we're living in, where it's more than fire, that they start to build their alert systems and build them into those categories. So thank you.
Representative Gant.
Yeah, the amendment that we're going to put on after this one kind of clarifies that. And it works in conjunction with the Department of Education and the Department of Safety to make that rulemaking to where we're kind of all on the same page. So you make a very good point.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting to adopt Amendment 9552. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted, and that brings us to amendment with drafting code 9517. Do I have a motion? Properly motion. Representative Gant, you are recognized on amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. And again, what this amendment does is it just allows the alert systems funded through this current grant program, and they must be approved by the Department of Education in consultation with the Department of Safety. And that's all this amendment does.
Thank you for that. Members, any questions on this amendment? Seeing none, we'll be voting to adopt Amendment 9517. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are back on the bill as amended. Representative Gant, do you have anything else you'd like to say on House Bill 7038? I'm sorry, I skipped back too far there. Yeah, 7038. Sorry, go ahead.
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to present. And I want to also thank Representative Bulso for his cooperation in this approach as well. And he may want to make some comments as well, but I just wanted to be on record thanking him for his contribution to this, drafting this legislation as well.
Representative Bulso, your name was called. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll simply congratulate Representative Gant on putting together such a fine piece of legislation that actually dovetails with other existing laws and proposed legislation that'll take a LISIS law that the majority leader mentioned a moment ago and actually bring it to reality in schools all across Tennessee. So I congratulate Mr. Gant on this bill and urge its passage.
Thank you. Any other questions for the sponsor? Members, without objection, we will go ahead and roll Amendment 1 and 2 into one amendment. All right. And with no objection, we'll go ahead and vote on House Bill 7038. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You're on to full education.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Thank you. Brings us to item number 7, House Bill 7042 by Representative Barrett. Do I have a motion? Properly motioned. Representative Barrett, you are recognized on House Bill 7042.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, House Bill 7042 builds on what we've just listened to. This will require a system for the Department of Safety, or a requirement for the Department of Safety to produce a report, a compliance audit of every single public school in the state of Tennessee, K through 12. And what that's going to do is allow us as this body and all shareholders interested in what's going on in public education to know exactly where their public school system is and each school building is when it comes to complying with all of these policies and procedures that we're putting in place, all of the money that we're putting out there to make our schools safer so that we can know where we need to address shortcomings in the systems across the state. This is very similar to TCAP testing, where we want to know from TCAP where our students are progressing. This is going to produce a report that tells us where our systems and our buildings are progressing when it comes to school safety.
All right, thank you for that. Members, any questions? Chairman Watt, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Barrett, or may need to ask Department of Safety, since we're asking the Department of Safety to do something, have you had conversations with them? And if not, I believe they're here and they're signed up. They can give us their opinion on that since we're asking them to put something in place.
Sure.
Okay.
Representative Barrett,
I've had conversations with safety, and if they're here and want to testify, they're more than welcome.
all right. Members, without objection, we will go out of session and ask the Department of Safety to come up. Just make sure you just state your name for the record and who you represent.
Elizabeth Stroker, Legislative Director, Department of Safety. And thanks, Representative Barrett. We've had some good conversations on this. We're not quite at a point where we think we can get to a good spot, but we're fine doing a report. We currently already audit review schools for any vulnerabilities. That report goes to DOE. We do it in consultation with them. But we've been having conversations with the representative about making sure that there's not too much detail in those reports that could potentially relay any vulnerabilities or things that we maybe wouldn't want the general public to be aware of. So we're still working with him to kind of finalize those details and make sure that the report isn't too accessible or something that would, potentially let bad actors know of any vulnerabilities at a school. So I'm still working through that, but a good idea that he's got.
Thank you. Chairman Watt, you're recognized.
So what I hear you saying is right now, if we let this bill move on through committee and say it eventually passed, then come January, we need to make adjustments for Department of Safety. We could do so, but you're okay at this point.
We would prefer the changes be made before the bill passes, just for the sheer fact that we want to make sure that we're not having anything put out there to the public that maybe should be kept confidential or shouldn't be relayed to the public at large.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our guests? All right, thank you. Without objection, we'll go back into session. And we'll go back to Representative Barrett for any follow-up on his bill.
Sure. So in response to safety's concerns, one of the things that I discussed with them is the report that's produced and brought back to this body does not have to have detailed information. Just like a TCAP report doesn't tell us which questions were missed on the test. It just gives us a rating as to where that student is. So the safety can create a system that comes back and tells us, even if it's a grading system, A, B, C, D, or pass, failure, or lacking, we can have that type of system that lets us know where each LEA is when it comes to compliance with safety issues that we're putting in place. Again, this is informative and necessary for us as a body to know exactly where it is that each district in the state is when it comes to compliance. And it's going to allow us to know where we need to move in order to fix problems or shortcomings that we have in what we've already tried to do as a body.
Thank you. Any other questions for our sponsor, Chairman Watt?
Thank you, Chairman. So in response to what the Department of Safety just said, that they would prefer that this not be put out until they know what is or isn't should be in the report. Does that give you concern?
Representative Barrett?
I'm not concerned because this statute and this bill is not, it does not have specific requirements as to what's in that report. Department of Safety is going to have discretion as to what comes back in this report. So if there are issues that they are concerned about from a safety standpoint of information being let out to the public, they're certainly able to retract that information or not put it in a public report.
Oh, I had a quick question. On the time frame, if it passed, how soon does it go into effect? And is it start down the line when the initial audits would begin?
Thank you, Chairman. The first report would be due November, I believe November of '25.
Okay.
And in my conversations with safety, they would be able to basically split the state in half and do half of the schools in the first report, and then create a rotation where, again, every so often, we're getting updated information to let us know where every school district is.
Chairman Watt?
Question, do you think that you would be able, if this comes out of sub before it goes into full tomorrow, that you would be able to satisfy maybe some of the concerns of the Department of Safety between now and then?
Certainly willing to work with safety to work on the language here if they have something to present that we can have an amendment added to it in full committee, certainly.
Good answer. Good answer.
Thank you. I love Department of Safety.
Any other questions for our sponsor? Seeing none without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 7042. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. It's on the full education. Brings us to item number 8, House Bill 7061 by Representative Love. Properly motion. Representative Love, you are recognized on House Bill 7061.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. The Bipartisan Safe for Communities Act allows for increased funding to specifically address issues around mental health and to prevent and respond to acts of bullying, violence, and hate that impact the school communities and individual and systemic levels, among other programs and activities. They also provide money for our school system to do a great many things. And all this piece of legislation does is says that by October, let me get the date right, October 15th, 2023, and each year thereafter, the Department of Education shall notify every LEA of those available funds from places like that act and also some state level funds.
All right, thank you for that. Members, any questions for our sponsor? Representative Bolso, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell us, Representative Love, how this is currently being handled? That is, how are LEAs learning about what state and federal grants are already available to
Sure.
assist them with these areas?
Representative Love?
Very good question. I think when you talk about the myriad of challenges that our LEAs are dealing with, trying to make sure the students get past third grade with our low reading levels, trying to make sure that our buildings are up to par when it comes to the construction and also the financing. One issue we had a few years back with TASSER was discovering how woefully behind our schools are in constructing buildings and maintain them. Once you get through all that, they may not have the time and access to actually go online and discover what particular items of funding are available at the state and federal level. As much as the Department of Education may push down to them in a voluntary method, this simply says that they must, by October the 15th, let them know about this.
Representative Ritchie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and sponsor. Just got a couple quick questions. How would the notification process be funded, and would it result in additional cost for the Department of Education or the local LEAs?
Representative Love.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the fiscal note, fiscal review has stated that the Department of Education has current knowledge and access to information regarding state and federal grants available to LEAs for the expansion of mental health service and resources, and the Department of Education can comply with provisions of the legislation within existing resources without a significant increase in state expenditures or positions.
Representative Ritchie.
But I guess the concern that I have, is there any additional cost at the local level?
Oh, when they receive the information.
At the local level, whether receiving or anything to do with this bill, is there any type of cost associated with this notification at the local level?
Representative Love.
Thank you. So it's my understanding that the communication would go this way, that the Department of Education would send information to the locals, and there would be no cost to then receive the information and act upon it. The good thing about what fiscal review gave to us in the fiscal note was the fact that it's not going to cost the state anything to actually get the information to the locals. And I don't see anything in the fiscal note about a local expenditure. I know sometimes we do have those, but I don't see anything in this fiscal note about that.
Representative Ritchie? All right. Any other questions for a sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 7061. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You're on to full education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members.
All right, that brings us to item number 10, House Bill 7092 by Representative Harris. Properly motion. Representative Harris, you are recognized on House Bill 7092.
Thank you, Chairman, and to the committee. House Bill 7092, this bill would add local law enforcement officials to the list of appointed members on each district-wide school safety team, and specifies that each district-wide school safety team and building school safety team will annually review the respective school safety plan. Adding local law enforcement to the actual planning of the school safety plan proactively helps in the event of school emergencies and school incidents, as law enforcement will have school layouts, firsthand knowledge of the facility, and what to do upon arrival. And so with that, I ask the committee for a positive recommendation to move this forward to the next committee.
Thank you. Any questions for a sponsor? Chairman Watt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. No, and I think this is good. I have no issues with it. My question is, in our school safety bill we passed last session, is this not language already in there? Or are we missing something?
No,
Representative Harris?
yes, and in the current language, they're part of the review process, but not a part of the planning process.
Part of the planning. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 7092. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed say no. Ayes have it. You're on to full education. And I believe, talking earlier, did you want to take the rest of the bill?
Take those off.
All right, so that'll be House Bill 7093 is off notice. House Bill 7095 is off notice. House Bill 7096 is off notice. And House Bill 7097 is off notice.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, that brings us to the end of the calendar. Without objection, we will stand adjourned subject to the call of the chair. We stand adjourned.